Welcome to it. You're still listening in to Transnet Talks here on the sidelines of the Africa Mining Indaba for 2026. As you can imagine, it's been a wonderful build-up speaking to various executives, leadership of Transnet as a group to really get better insight into the strategic direction. We heard from the chairman. We heard from key leaders who are driving the importance of the strategy and, most importantly, the impact on customers. Speaking of customers, we here are at the exhibition stand and we have a wide audience of participants who are joining us as key customers of Transnet. As we know, it continues to play a critical role, whether through the ports or our rail infrastructure or the institutions that oversee much of their operations and help facilitate their growth, their partnership, and leveraging opportunities that exist. Today, we're going to speak to the acting chief executive of the Transnet Ports Authority to give us some more insight into the role, structure, and most importantly, some new phenomenal partnerships that they're looking to expand on. Mohammed Abdool joins us to give us some insight. Such a pleasure to have you with us, sir.
Good morning, Gugu. Pleasure's all mine. Thanks. Thank you for having me here.
Mohammed, I must say I'm excited to actually speak to you. If I'm not mistaken, this is your first Mining Indaba. Tell us more, because you've actually served as a critical leader within various roles and functions at TNPA, at TFR, and now back as acting CEO. So you've probably signed off the check for your colleagues to attend Mining Indaba in the past, but this time around you're here for yourself.
Agreed, Gugu. And one reflects back and just understand each year this would have happened, and we've been participating. Correct. I'm actually be signing off and making sure people get here, and all of this is happens, and it achieves what it needs to achieve. But this time around, slightly different. The checks are being signed, and I've actually been delivered to come through to the Mining Indaba, and it's been fantastic.
Yeah.
And I was just indicating to the colleagues a little earlier, it's amazing that it's already day 3, and the amount of work that's actually already gone by in the last 3 days, or last 2 days at least, has been phenomenal. The meetings we've had, it's just some of the engagements, the idea generation. I've had a meeting yesterday afternoon with one of the private sector entities who are actually working in the rail space with my colleague Boshe. What he's putting out there, and just some of the ideas, it's just been phenomenal. Yeah?
100%. That's exciting. I think really critical for us to know, right, that there's ongoing partnerships and new conversations taking place to solve for the challenges we have, not only in mining, but for the South African economy overall. For those who aren't familiar with TNPA, maybe tell us more about, the role, the strategic direction that you're leading as acting CE for the Ports Authority, and just some of the opportunities that we're beginning to explore.
Sure. Okay, so as an introduction to the Transnet National Ports Authority, and it was listening to your opening there, you talked about this Transnet Port Authority. So importantly, we've got National Ports Authority, and emphasis, mind you, Google, because we're unique. The TNPA, from a Port Authority perspective, actually has got 8 commercial ports in its stable. So if you look at it globally, it's not a common phenomenon where you have 8 ports under one stable. So this is quite a difference for the South African space, or for the world as well. So who are we? We're the Port Authority. We've got 8 commercial ports, as I've indicated, all the way from the eastern region of Richards Bay to the Northern Cape and Saldanha. We've also got Port Nolloth, which is the 9th port. We don't talk too much about it.
Where is that, for those who aren't familiar?
So it's further north of Saldanha, on the north coast, at least on the west coast, but further north of that. Port Nolloth, and we have De Beers Mining, who actually are anchor tenant there, and they do their business out of that port. So because they're the main tenant and they really use it, we don't talk too much about it from a commercial perspective. It's got some constraints in terms of traditional cargo flows, but it works very well for De Beers. So we're glad to have them there at least. So over just under 3,000 kilometer coastline, you've got all our ports. Each port serves a particular hinterland. We've got, for example, the Port of Richards Bay that deals with primarily it's with coal. We've also seen a lot of chrome and magnetite coming through there. And then on the west coast, we've got not too far from here, we've got the Port of Saldanha dealing with iron ore. And our other ports then deal with multimodal cargoes. Durban's our king port in terms of containers, automotives. So that's really the Port Authority, and our responsibility is coming from the National Ports Act. And in fact, it dictates our mandate, if I can put it as such. Really asking us to be the landlord Port Authority, responsible for the safe, efficient, and effective port functioning in the country.
Yeah.
And we're a critical node for this for the country. So whilst we're talking about mining and we're talking about making sure that we're able to transport it on rail, but a lot of that commodities are actually leaving our shores, and it's our ports that need to make sure that this is happening, and that's where our role comes in. Yeah.
I'm glad you touch on that because it's really important to understand that you've quite literally helped the economy to run and to function in terms of being the National Ports Authority through Transnet. What I'm keen to also talk about is this growing theme that we have seen. There have been several interventions, several reforms that have been implemented by Transnet as a group. They do also influence the strategic direction of the various pillars of the business. And when it comes to the Ports Authority, National Ports Authority, this is also where modernization of our national ports has become a key focus. Tell us what this entails and how TPNA has been taking care of this.
Sure. So the way I look at modernization of the ports, it's actually looking at repositioned port ecosystems. Okay, and it's about providing basically providing infrastructure fit for purpose, enabling it with technology, and looking at integrated logistics so that we can enable cargo flows, like I say, from port to port type of thing that we talk about. This development but goes further. I think the responsibility for the Port Authority has certainly grown. We need to be looking at lower carbon emission type of activities. We're encouraging in the likes of liquefied natural gas, and we're seeing a flurry of that type of activity in the port. I'm very excited. We're also looking at green ammonia, green hydrogen, and all of that with integrated renewable solutions such as solar and wind power.
Gotcha.
So it's quite interesting space in terms of modernizing the ports and the way the world has actually moved.
What I'm hearing you highlight is that this also speaks to sustainability, right? Making sure that we're actually meeting those particular targets when it comes to growth, sustainability, and environmentally for efficacy. Help us understand how this also ties into the human element, because when it comes to building ports and the modernization of ports, yes, we live in a digital world, but there's also a skills space that needs to be tapped.
100%. And in fact, when you talk about port modernization, you can't leave the people behind. I mean, it's our prized asset. But importantly is that we've evolved. The way of doing things in the past was good for them, but some things have certainly changed. We now need, I look at my time back in, 2.5 decades of being in the company.
Yeah.
And I look at the handling modes that we used to have. More recently now, I need to start talking about gas as a handling mode. And we never had gas as a handling mode. So I had containers, liquid bulk, automotives, dry bulk, break bulk. Gas is a significant player in that space. And therefore, it's important that the workforce understands that. In as much as we're talking about, a more sustainable solutions, but it does come with an element of risk as well. And it's important that our people are, that we are ready for that, and there's safe practices and new ways of doing things. So this talks about upskilling our people. And we've actually getting involved in terms of institutions. We've also got our own institution within Transnet, the Transnet Academy, and working very closely with them to make sure that we've got programs in place so that our people are being geared up and upskilled for what's to come in terms of port modernization.
100%. So we've got the academy. We're making sure that there's partnerships. Modernization is actually quite key. Before I start tripping over my acronyms, Transnet, National Ports Authority, let's also prioritize, as you mentioned, 8 key sites that you take care of. Are there particular ports of greater importance or of prioritization? Were you looking to expand, prioritize growth, investment, and of course, opportunity for customers?
All 8 ports of ours are very important, including the 9th port of Port Nolloth. So yes, so the viewers are listening, yes, they're equally important as well. And we'd make sure that they are maintained. But all 8 ports are important. But the nature, I guess, the beauty of the model is that by virtue of each port serving particular hinterland, you would find that there'd be activities, certain activities are pushing more faster. For example, you have mining that's coming through, so the bulk ports become a priority. And then sometimes you actually have containers. So at least that helps as well in terms of just the normal economics. But that's not, but we're also conscious of the fact that we have had a constrained balance sheet as Transnet. It's really impacted on our development. So unfortunately, in the more recent past, we haven't seen more expansionary projects. We've really been focusing on more the sustaining the organization, and that's sustaining all of the ports infrastructure. So some of those projects have we been undertaking, but we're quite excited with the Reinvent for Growth strategy that we've launched as Transnet. We're out of that recovery phase to a large extent. We're now starting to look forward.
Yes.
And we've got some exciting projects going forward, Google, in terms of that. And all of the ports will feature in one form or the other, I must tell you.
Yeah.
All of it, but over a 5-year span. So we're not starting all the projects in all 5 years at the same time. But over the 5 years, you are going to start to see developments in all the ports, all the way from the eastern region, all the way down to the west.
Got you. And therein lies the opportunity, right? For many of us who follow the news, we might have seen some developments largely within the Port of Durban, of course, what we see in terms of Richards Bay. But as the Transnet National Ports Authority, I think it is imperative for us to also understand the role and function that you play in facilitating private sector participation in partnerships in order to unlock the full potential.
Sure. So, private sector participation, and we also like to talk about public-private partnerships. Okay, it's actually a mandate of the TNPA, and I stand proud to inform my other divisions that in fact we lead on a large extent. To the large extent, we lead on that front.
So TFR can learn something.
Yes. They certainly can. So, as I was mentioned a little earlier, our mandate comes from the National Ports Act, and it's a National Ports Act of 2005, implemented in 2006. So, we're talking about 20 years ago, this piece of legislation has come through, and it's a deliberate intention of that act that we need to introduce private sector participation. So, and public-private partnerships. So, we've been under our new business development team. We've got a GM commercial who then oversees that. Really pushing on private sector participation in public partnerships. But what's important is that it's really about focusing on catalytic infrastructure investments, so that we can encourage inclusive economic growth and with a clear drive for transformation. So it's quite a loaded mandate, but it's something that we're excited about, and we're very pleased to see some of the projects that we've actually delivered. If I can just touch on some of them, Gugu, and we're very excited about the ones that we've done up. We've signed up recently. We've done the Zululand Energy Terminal in the port of Richards Bay. It's the first LNG terminal that's coming through. It's got 3,000 megawatts, and this is all part of us transitioning from coal into cleaner fuel type of energies. So we've got that coming through. In December, we were also signing up with WASA and the Central Energy Fund for an LPG terminal in the port of Durban. That's also coming through, and we look at some of those investments involved. It's a 1.4 billion rand project. We're busy with another LNG facility currently in the port of Kucha as well, with CEF, again, Central Energy Fund, and Temasa. So there's quite a bit of it's the Strategic Fuel Fund, my apologies, SFF, and Temasa. So there's quite a few initiatives that we do in the private sector participation.
For an accountant, you've done incredibly well to transition into understanding the energy space, especially in LNG. I say this lightheartedly because I think it's so refreshing to see that that's actually part of perhaps the growth engine or opportunity that's been presented to Transnet National Port Authority. And does that actually speak again then to, just the flexibility or the evolution of the mandate of TNPA to prioritize new areas of development like LNG gas, as we do see?
Correct. And this is what I was saying a little earlier. The exciting space for the Port Authority is that it now needs to keep up with pace with what's happening around us. And in as much as we are talking about the Mining Indaba, and I was quite keen on understanding some of the conversations that was going on yesterday, one of the panel discussions that Bongani was hosting, and we talk about the beneficiation. So whilst we know that our resources are important, mineral resources are important, but we need to start also talk about beneficiation. We need to start talking about beneficiation of these minerals into completed goods, because that's really where the wealth of nations lie. And we're talking about, again, dealing with the three critical evils that we have in our country of poverty, inequality, unemployment. And the only way we're really going to shift the dial is through that, is to then rethinking of beneficiation. Mind you, as a Port Authority, about 15 years ago, we launched an initiative or a proposal to consider how we can actually promote beneficiation with more cost-effective port tariffs, so that we could see and more, for whoever's exporting containers with finished goods would actually attract get a better tariff compared to then just exporting of minerals. So we do have a role to play in that space as well.
That sounds like a fantastic incentive actually to get more players within the industry to actually prioritize local beneficiation. And I prioritize this because it's been a conversation that we've been having as an industry for a very long time. So to see that there are positive impacts in terms of driving that is encouraging. Has it translated into, key stakeholders, partners, peers in the private and public sector actually coming on board to say, you know what, we'll prioritize beneficiation?
Yeah. So unfortunately, the policy space has been a bit slow. We were really backing off DTIC, some of the industrial policies that they were putting in place, because we were wanting to be an enabler of those type of ideas, and that's really where we come through with the port tariffs. Like I say, it's been a bit slow on that front, but I think we're encouraged. I think altogether with the freight logistics reform that's come through, encouraging partnerships, the type of theme that's coming through on this Indaba, and if the policy, we have policies now to start matching that, we will be ready as the port sector. Just talking about that space as well. I mean, when we're looking at private sector participation in public-private partnerships, it has the potential. I mean, the projects that we've got in the pipeline have got a potential of bringing on some 5,000 direct jobs into the 5,000 direct jobs into the system, and we're encouraged by what that can bring about. Yeah, so
Send. Mohammed, this is really refreshing, and I think for anyone who might be listening, they get a better understanding of the National Ports Authority, understanding its mandate, but just also the drive for partnerships. We've heard this from the chair, from the COO, from your peers and partners as well in different divisions of the business, including business development and equipment. But the big question is, what does this mean for customers?
Sure. Yeah. Again, let me start off by saying what it does mean for customers is that we are open to do business to the extent that they've got ideas, they've got there's opportunities, they know what's out there, what's the potential, what potential markets are lying out there. But unfortunately, the constraining factor of the likes of a logistics business like Transnet has actually been the Achilles heel of moving us forward. And what partnership then does is that it helps your private sector starting to come in and co-work with us to then find solutions and actually starting to invest into, for example, the port space. Given some of my private sector participation initiatives that we've got lined up, it's got a potential of about 27 billion rand of investment into the country.
This is taking partnerships to a new level, no impact on your balance sheet, but unlocking so much.
Exactly. I would need to facilitate that. I mean, I've got to put some skin in the game.
Yeah.
But if I were to tell you, it's roughly about 10%. So if I were to invest 2.7 billion rand, I can unlock 27 billion rand of investment. I mean, you can even do it.
It's a no-brainer.
It's a no-brainer. And that's really what we encouraged, and that's really what it means for customers. And you, again, the multiplier effect of that for the economy. We get the economists to then work it out for us. Yeah,
100%. I guess to close off with, it's been so exciting and refreshing to hear the perspective of yourself leading the drive and the strategy for Transnet as a National Ports Authority, the partnerships that you're looking to open up on, both in terms of private sector participation, but also public-private partnerships that you've mentioned. I'm keen for us to build up on this excitement. There's a number of stakeholders who are present, many of whom represent the mining industry, but also all of us have a keen interest in the running of the economy as a whole. What's your parting shot to all of us as key stakeholders?
Yeah. So I think my parting shot to all of the listeners and the audience around us is that TNPA is really building a future-ready, energy sustainably enabled port system that will actually support sustainable growth and empowering South Africa. And I would then say, let's progress through partnerships. Our payoff line for Transnet is that when Transnet works, South Africa thrives.
Yeah. When Transnet works, South Africa thrives. We're not leaving any cargo behind, right? So that's clearly the mandate. Mohammed, such a pleasure speaking to you, sir. Really excited and all the best going forward.
Thank you, Google. Thank you for the opportunity again. Yeah.
Thank you. It's Mohammed Abdool joining us as Acting Chief of Transnet National Ports Authority.